my way, stumble around all day. I try to stand up straight, but then I tumble down.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Talking with Giants Presents. Really excited about this show here because, quite frankly, we got the right combination. They're sitting on the other side right there, Barbie and Richard Armenta. Let me give you a little background on both. Barbie's a professionally trained Christian, a life coach, a speaker, a writer. Just got some tremendous insights, and we're going to go through a lot of those. Richard is also a speaker, writer, mentor, and just an all-around good dude. Hey, welcome to Talking with Giants Presents.
Thank you for having us.
We're excited.
Yeah.
Well, we want to make sure that we use most of this to get your word out. Please share with everybody a little bit of your path so that we can then do a little deeper dive as we go along.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you want to start?
You want to start?
Yeah, sure. I guess to kind of step back a little bit, I say pre-right combination, right? So I was, living my life in a way that was kind of, outside the realms of spiritual living, with, really not focused on Christ and really centered with Christ. And I had just gone through a divorce and really had just about 3 months after my divorce, my wife had filed for divorce, and then our dad died. I'm sorry, let's get this right. So February of '99, my dad passed away. And then 3 months later, my wife filed for divorce, and it kind of set me in a reel, and I was just kind of spinning. And I'd always kind of, and at that time, I was really just starting to focus and trying to really get my walk on with God. We had a little daughter, and I was like, I really need to get this right. And then all that took place, and it just really set me in a dark spot, I would say from like 2000 to 2003. And during that time, I got kind of caught up in using some drugs that really just got a hold of me, and that put me in a faith-based treatment center. But that's where God really showed up. I mean, it was something that I think was God ordained that the place that I found and went to was just filled with the Holy Spirit. It was a faith-based treatment center, and I tell people that when I walked in there, I was one man, and then when I left, I was a completely different man. It was truly, if I had to say anything and compare it to anything, it was truly my road to Damascus. It was the scaling of the eyes, going blind, and then the falling off and being a completely different man. Because when I left there, I was full on fire for God, and the way that I used to live my life ended. I walked out of there and I was a completely different man, and it was like, okay, these are the things that I do not do anymore. And one of them specifically being, I do not have sex outside of marriage anymore. Because that was just, as I like to say, tell people, I went in there for using one drug, but I always tell people that was also a drug of choice for me.
Sure.
Sex, so that's kind of where the whole right comment is. So when I started dating again and looking about where do I live, how do I walk this out? Well, for a long time, I didn't date at all. And then my sister was bugging me, like you should start dating. So I went online. And that's where the whole right combination kicked off, because when I went online to start, just kind of fishing the waters again, I guess I should say, my tagline in my online profile was padlock, looking for the right combination.
That's awesome.
Turn that down.
No, that's right. And so then, of course, the lovely Barbie is there. So how does this all come together to start to form this right combination? Of course, it was so easy.
Oh, of course. Not hard at all. No, I had been divorced for a few years and raising my 3 boys, and I was dating and not necessarily doing everything God's way. I was holding on to God with everything else, but I thought I had the dating thing down, and so when I met him, he went out the first night. It was like, for me, it was like lightning. I'm like, he checked off all the things on my list of things I wanted, including wearing flip-flops with jeans. I know, as stupid as that is, but that was one of my things that I liked. So when we met, I immediately was interested in him, and then had a fabulous first date, went out dancing, had pancakes at 4 a.m. It was awesome. And then the next day, he let me know that he was not having sex outside of marriage. And I thought, oh, that is so sweet.
Initially.
financially until it got difficult because, no one else is doing it that way.
Well, so let's
Or
address
feels
that
that way.
because it's not the norm, and to kind of recenter yourself in such a great way spiritually, and to just go back and say, okay, I'm going to go God's way in this, and Barbie probably didn't have any questions for you along the way, did she, Richard?
Yeah, just I would probably say just a few. As you said, it's not the norm, right? And I think I share a story often that I was in a singles event, and we were doing a mock wedding, and then they were talking about sex outside of marriage and how the world looks at us as Christians, how the world looks at us as the oddball out. And I remember specifically looking at this pastor that was leading singles ministry, and I said, what's funny? I said, as I'm in a room full of Christians, in which at that time, there was probably about 300, 400 Christians in that room. And I said, but yet I still feel like I'm the oddball out. So as you start really walking this out, and and really start living it out, and you start this dating, what you find is, that as they start questioning, does he really like me? Is he really that into me? Because that's
what my friends would say.
Right.
My friends would say, he's just not into you. Y'all are just friends. You're wasting your time.
So the pressures of the world started coming out.
Yes.
And the girlfriends had seen the movie. He's just not that into you, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And so that's what the world was saying. And so how did that, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there, but how did that tweak your head through this process?
Yeah, it was, I started getting stressed, but what really happened for me was one day when I was at my house, I just really felt like God was saying to me, who are you doing this for, me or him? And I knew the answer to that. It was probably for him, because the real question was, what are you going to do if this doesn't work out? Because we had only been dating for a few months. And, it was easy if the guy doesn't want to, but what are you going to do when you are the one that has to say no? And I really had to get on my knees and pray about it right then and kind of surrender that for myself, because I could have done it for a little while for him, but those voices would have gotten louder and louder of my friends going, seriously, you're wasting your time.
Right. Yeah, a little bit of chatter coming along from some of the girls, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But from that point on, I was really doing it for the right reasons. And it was still difficult, but if he had wanted to at that point, I wouldn't have. Like, I felt like I had made this commitment to God at that point. But I did have a moment where I don't remember exactly what I said to him, but he was like, are you asking me if I want to have sex with you? And I was like, I don't want to. I just want to know that you want to. Like,
I don't want to. I just want to test to make sure.
Right. I just want to know that we're not just friends and I really am wasting my time.
Right, but
there is chemistry.
Yeah, but isn't that a funny thing about society, right? And the way the world thinks, right? Is she was at that time, and I'm not just saying just her, just Barbie, but as I was finding out as I was dating God's way, not having sex outside of marriage, it was funny how many women equated the sexual relationship with attractiveness.
Yeah.
I thought that was so interesting, and when that has nothing to do with it at all.
Well, that's why when I first heard your story, it was one of those stories that I want to help you guys get out, because you're such a great inspiration to so many, quite frankly. I get it. It's that's why the word has to get out, and it has to get out in the biggest, broadest way it can to help others understand, you can do this God's way.
Yeah.
Well, what happens, just like he was saying, that we equate that with how, our appearance or if we're attractive, but it's also we find looking for our value in the wrong place. We need to be looking for our value in Christ and allow him to give that to us. Instead, we put those expectations on a person, and we can't put God expectations on a person. I just this weekend heard a sermon where they were talking about the woman at the well, and he was talking about, he tells her, no, you don't. She says, I don't have a husband. He said, no, you don't have a husband. You've had 5. And And the man that you're with now is not your husband. And I thought, I just suddenly related to that, and see that in so many women that I know of. We just repeat this pattern over and over, looking for this man that's going to satisfy what only God can satisfy. And so that was probably one of the biggest lessons for me, was just learning how to figure out who I was and my own identity outside of the man in my life. And it makes me a better person for him.
Well, and I think especially,
it's so cool.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Richard.
No, I was just going to share on top of that, because what's so funny is when you start talking about the subject we're talking about, people all of a sudden start equating it to teens and teenagers,
right?
And that's not the point at all, because what we hit, we're talking. You're in a society now where your average age of singles now is in their 30s. Really, and now you're looking at so many divorces, that are happening. So you find these men and these women that are now, 40 and divorced, 50 and single, and so what was so funny is that people get, they're so quick to get purity and virginity mixed up, because you would start sharing with them, and the response would be with so many was, come on, I'm 50. It's a little late, don't you think?
Well, but isn't that the crux of it all? When you get a little more mature, that's code word for old.
Yeah.
When you get a little more mature, you tend to take a look at some other things. It's really, my new book and a lot of things I'm doing is really going from success to significance. Success is a wonderful thing, and achieving those goals and doing those things are great, but it's really, to me now, at a point of significance. It's the meaning behind it all, and the why does it take? I mean, I had my health event. I've had lots of events. You've had some, your situations, but it almost takes, unfortunately, some worldly negatives to finally get us going in looking in the proper direction, or a better direction. Does that make some sense?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I think we live in a society that wants things quickly. We want it, people might even look at our relationship and think, oh, I want that, but they don't want to go through what we went through.
I think that's a prime. I talk about it much. In fact, I talked about it this weekend at an event I was at, that we live in this me, now society. We want instant gratification. We're not willing to put in the work that it takes to create lifelong relationships or do the different things. And it translates in personal relationships and business and everything. We just, we've got to do things the right way.
Right.
Yeah. And when it comes to, relationships, I mean, like, he challenges me in a good way. And hopefully I challenge him in a good way, because God can use us to make us better people, when we allow that. But, I know our pastor had written a book where he talked about when we look at our spouse, we see the best of us and we see the worst of us. And when we allow that to make us better, then that's where you get that. I feel like you're going to say that good marriage, but so often instead we would rather just point fingers and try to fix the other person, and we're trying to fix flaws that we actually have in ourselves.
Right.
So.
Right. I think it's just, it's a complete, it is a marriage. I think the marriage is a mirror of your relationship with Christ. Complete surrender, complete submitting, complete selflessness. I was once told, if you don't feel like you're doing everything, then you're probably not doing enough. I thought that was great advice.
It's so interesting because, again, another concept, somebody was saying, everything needs to be a 50-50 relationship. And I said, 50-50 relationship is an extremely weak relationship. And the way I share that message is, if you had a tree on each side of a river and you bent it over to touch and then lash that together, the bridge that's created is actually a very weak bridge. I believe we need to have 100-100 relationship,
right?
And then lash it. Now you've got a bridge that's impenetrable. And somebody says, so you're saying that you go into things at 100%. Well, yeah, I really do.
Mhm.
And I think that you really have to do that in this day and age. And I talk consistently about high intention, low attachment, a high intention of doing good, a low attachment as to how that works out, right? It's that same kind of thing in relationships. You guys are a great example of that. I mean, I think that you've taken this and really created a pattern that people can latch onto, and it works.
That is absolutely our prayer. I feel like sometimes that no one wants to hear that, because we don't want to hear that. We just want to hear we can do what we want and it's all going to be great. But when 50% of marriages are failing and 73% of second and third marriages are failing,
Right.
We knew we had to do something different, and God knew what was coming down our path. We've faced challenges in our marriage that we're stronger together, because we built that foundation and the communication, and we took the time to work through that. And he took the time to build a relationship with my boys, and I got to know his daughter. And, so often people rush in because the couple goes together great. So the kids will be fine. We'll all work it out and we'll all blend. And, and he kept saying, I want to make sure I don't resent your boys, and then I love them. And
nice.
Time, I wasn't very patient, and now I'm really grateful.
I think a lot of couples, they do that. We see them, they rush into something so quick, and especially when there's kids involved. That's what I knew. I knew how tight my relationship was with my daughter, so I just told her. I said, I was like, be patient. Let's walk through this process, because I know how I love my daughter. And why would I go into something with you if I can't love your boys 100%? And just digressing kind of back to what you said earlier, the bridge being built, if I've been two trees that's weaker in the middle, is kind of what, I look at our relationship is, I was, through my singleness, I was building my solid foundation, as you might say, the framework, of the bridge with my relationship with Christ. And through that 4 years of us dating, before I proposed to her, you could almost say that the same thing was happening on her side. The framework was being built. The carpenter was at work, so that when the bridge was complete, it was solid, because I tell her, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I know that there are people watching this going, wait, I must not have heard this right. So they're building this foundation for 4 years. And they, like these two, seriously, now come on, really, seriously.
First off, no one signs up for the 4-year plan. It's one day at a time. But we were also very intentional, and very open. We led a singles home team, through our church. We knew people were watching. Like there was one night where I lived pretty far from him, but there was nothing by me, so I was always driving down towards his house. But one night I drove there, we got in his car, and we ended up closer to my house. He could have dropped me off and I could have got my car later, but he was like, no, we can't leave your car there because we want to stay above reproach. Like we were very intentional with everything that we did, and our kids were watching. We were
that's great.
Open with our kids. We were open with people in our church, and so it wasn't just about us, and we knew it from the beginning.
Did that create any, I know we talked about the girlfriends and things like that, but did it really create a different kind of pressure on the relationship? I mean, or was it just, did it more bless the relationship?
Both. I think a lot of the blessings come in hindsight. In the middle, I will say there was a lot of challenges, and mainly internal. Right. Because just what he was saying of, not feeling attractive or all of those things, there was a lot of time that he had walls up, as he probably needed to, and that kind of forced me to grow my relationship with Christ, first of all. But it also, there was a lot of times that I questioned, is he ever going to feel that way? Am I wasting my time? Is this really anything? And it's really been an amazing journey for me with God, even up to now. We went through something called Kairos at a local church, and it was just some things of letting some things go. And I realized it really brought up some insecurities that I probably already had. But that's where that thing is of with relationship making you a better person. You know, I realized really how much I was looking for someone else to validate me.
Yeah, I often tell her, because as God was building on me in my singleness, then when we got together, and it was a lot of that work up to meeting her that God was doing in me. That when I met her and we got in this relationship, there was a new dynamic, and so I knew who I was in Christ. But God had some more work to do in me, right? Because now you're bringing somebody else into the picture. And so I often, there would be times that I would get short with her. I'd get, a little upset with her. I'd get, impatient and stuff. And I would often tell her, and it's, the same thing when I think of other couples and what they're going through. If you just focus on Christ and understand what it's about, I would tell her, I said, look, I know I'm short with you. I know I'm a little upset, but here, it's not about you. It's God is working on me. And I would tell her, you are just stretching me and pulling me in ways I've never been stretched and pulled before. I haven't had to be stretched and pulled like this before, but you are making me a better me. And isn't that, when I look at that, isn't that really the dynamic of what Christ does with us, right? He stretches and pulls us in such a way that it's painful. But we know in the end, he's making us a better us,
Absolutely. So now that you've had that, you've been stretched, you've been pulled, you've been molded, you've done all this.
Yeah.
Share with everybody a little bit of the good that you're working to do and the good that you want to do from all this.
Well, for me, especially being a Christian life coach and working with women, that's really my heart now, is to share with other women that, first off, it's never too late. That, well, I'm 50, well, I'm 60. The Bible doesn't have anything, that doesn't say anything about age.
Right.
This is just the guidelines that he gives us. And it's guidelines and guardrails for our protection, not for our punishment. And just so for me, just women realizing it's never too late. And just that God still has that abundant life that he promises us. I love John 10:10. I really felt like I lived that out. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's what I felt like my life had looked like through my divorce. But he says that I have come that you may have life and have it abundantly. And that is really my heart, is just letting people know that doesn't end, that he has that for us. And it's never too late for that. That's what so through my coaching, through speaking, through, we're writing a book, and that's really what I want women. For me, it's really women, want women to know, but I work with women, so.
Yeah. And so for me, it's like, for me, because I went through what I went through, with the drug situation and having to, checking myself into a faith-based treatment center and just really refocusing and rededicating my life to Christ. For me, it's like, I really, just love to share and mentor other men, especially in that area, because there becomes such a unworthiness, such a stigma that you walk through, that you go through, that, how could God ever possibly use me? So for me, it's just, I love working with those men, and just sharing with them and letting them know that, it takes a stronger man, to say no than to just go with what the world's saying. There is no weakness in it. And trust me, when you walk down this path, you're gonna come out on the other end so much stronger and better, when you run through these marital situations. So for me, it's like, I've started a nonprofit with it called the Irwin House, just a Christ-centered sober living home. And, so I really love to help these men that is walking through that and let them know that, they truly are usable. As I, went back earlier, I talked about the road to Damascus. If God can take Saul and turn him into Paul, there's no telling what he can do with the average, and he was an average man, but there's no telling what he can do with you. We don't know the plan he has written for us yet.
Well, I was sharing with you before we started the interview. I was at an event this weekend, a tremendous number of spiritual healers and just wonderful people. But I came out of a mantra. I came out with a mantra from it. That it's just, I just wanted, it's like it just popped up as I heard you guys talking. It says, Jesus forgave me, Michael protects me, Gabriel guides me in the future.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's just a reminder. We all go through things that are obviously tremendously significant at the time and
Mhm.
and all that. But you guys are doing an awesome job of turning that for your good. It seems like something was written like that. All things happen
Yeah.
for the good.
Exactly.
So how can we help you get the message out?
Really, it's, for me, it's like, anytime I get a chance to speak, I love to speak, because there's so many topics that, I always say God is just kind of pouring into me these things that I think that need to get out. Right. And so just the things on what it looks like after recovery, just the things on what it looks like walking in your singleness, the things that what it looks like to be out of bondage now, because so many of us are walking, as I was sharing, spoke at one church, and I was talking about how we were shackled, and I saw this picture of these slaves in chains, and I was like, man, I mean, it was almost offensive to think we did that to people when I looked at the way I felt. But then I thought, wow, we do that to ourselves.
Yeah.
Ourselves in shackles, and so I just love to be able to speak and just share my story and what it looks like to be unchained from addiction, unchained from sex, unchained from what society expects of you, and just really share that message with the world and without there, with the men. And I think for me, as far as a man, I think what women need to hear from a man is when I proposed to Barbie, I did it in a room full of about 150 women, at a church event. And what I shared with them, and that was crazy. That that took some braveness. They talk about hashtag get your brave on.
Exactly. Again, it reminds me of what you were saying there. Reminds me of the Casting Crowns song "Set Me Free."
Yeah. Exactly.
We just need it blaring in the background here.
Exactly.
Barbie, how about you? How can we help you get the message out?
Well, for me, we speak together and we speak separately. We love to speak to singles, but I love to speak to women in general. And just the 3 words that God had really given me for the right combination was courage, commitment, and faith. And so I love to share with women, I love the story of Peter walking on water and just the courage that it took to get out of the boat, but then it took commitment to keep going, which obviously we know he looked at the storm around him and sank. But that's what we do so often. And what is it in women or people that we can keep that commitment going, that we kept the commitment for 4 years with the dating. But there's so many things, just I went through a divorce and from an abusive marriage, and just the courage that took to leave, and then that walk after that. And so I love to share those things with women. And just as you said, the hashtag put your brave on, that's what I like to talk to women about, is just being brave in their own lives and just finding their identity and their authentic self.
Yeah, that wasn't an original. That was stole the hashtag.
That was you. I see. You're actually stealing her stuff. Nice. That's awesome. How about, man, it's hard to believe our time has just run through already. How about some last nuggets or last words of wisdom?
Yeah, I guess last nuggets of wisdom is just, what, and it sounds so cliche, but just be patient with what God is doing with you. I mean, you don't know the work that he is doing, behind you, preparing you for, what he has planned for you. Every day I'm amazed at what God reveals for me. Just to be on your show talking with giants is to me an absolute God thing. He showed up out of nowhere, and here we are doing this show. And for me, with a chance to be able to share our message. And so for me, that's the nugget just to take away is truly walk by faith and not by sight. Because every day I walk around and every day it's chaos, and every day what I see does not make sense. And yet every day God shows up faithfully in all capacities of my life, whether it be spiritually, whether it be financially, whether it be mentally, because we are getting attacked from all sides. And so that's kind of the nugget that I kind of would like to just have people just take away from that.
That's a great one.
For me, I'm going to steal from him. When we were dating, he stole from me. I'm going to steal that. When we were dating, he used to tell me all the time, just enjoy the process. And I would get super annoyed because I'm like, how long is this process? But now that's really something we hold on to, is just as we've been walking this journey with our book and just with our ministry and everything, is just enjoying the process, because every day, like you said, God shows up in just amazing ways. He does exceedingly abundantly more than we can ask or imagine. And we just see it all the time. And it's just, being obedient and available.
I think that's the key right there, is the obedient and available. I think as we had gotten together earlier, I shared with you, my prayer used to be, God, use me. And I was told by the great Krish Dunham, wrong prayer. Make me usable.
Yes.
And you guys are an awesome example of being usable. Thanks for joining us here on Talking with Giants. It's been absolutely awesome. We're going to have to do this again, though.
Yeah, let's do it. I'd love to.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, and God bless.